when you need to sew backwards, this video is going to help you do it the way you want it to go on the Husqvarna Viking Brilliance 75. So a lot of people actually ask me this question, like, how do I go backwards? And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, for some reason, we just never really did it on this machine. But there is a button, the little kind of upside down U-turn arrow, right at your fingertips. So I love it that I'm right here close by when I'm sewing with my finger. But there is a couple ways to use it. And maybe this is where people kind of ask, why they ask me is because it actually does two different things, and that could be confusing. We also have it that, before I get into some specifics here, that when you actually use the scissor button and you cut your thread at the end of your row of sewing, that when you come back and stitch, you have something called a fix button with a light by it. That means that there's some locking stitches that are happening at the beginning automatically. So we do have a video on how to use and when to use the fix button, but here we want to clarify using the reverse button. So I'm going to bring you a little closer so you can see when I'm pushing this button and then exactly what it's doing here. So as I use the foot control and I'm sewing forward, if I push this and hold it while I'm sewing, you notice the blue light comes on and the machine backs up. But as soon as I let go, it goes forward again. So if I just need a quick little reverse, couple stitches, and then finish, that is a very quick, I almost call it a quick reverse, quick way to have locking stitches until you need to cut the thread and lift the foot up. Okay, so super easy to that point. But here's what happens and why sometimes people get a little confused. Let's go ahead. New line of stitching is they stop and then they touch the reverse button, the light turns on, and then it just continues to sew backwards forever. Okay, then you have to stop, touch that button again, the light goes off, and then they sew forward again. So sometimes when you just want to go backwards for a quick little bit, touch and hold it while you're sewing. Okay, maybe just go a little slower so you can take just the right amount of stitches. But just note that if you activate it, while you're stopped, it's going to keep going. That means you can actually hold this and actually sew backwards further without you having to hold the button. Okay, so that's where some people are like, oh, it's still sewing backwards. Oh no. But you just touch it and then it goes forward again. Okay, I know I'm going back and forth quite a few times here. So here's another thing. If you're stopped and you touch and hold the button, you're going backwards. When you let go, it still goes backwards. So just keep in mind that if you use this while you're not moving, it's going to put it into a permanent reverse. Blue light on means I'm going backwards. So then you have to just touch it again to come forward. So I want you to give this a try. Just next time you're sitting down, take a piece of fabric. I always fold mine in half so you're sewing on 2 layers. And just do that. Touch and hold. Realize you can control exactly how many stitches you have. When you're touching it, what happens if you touch it and just sew, what you have to do to turn it back off. That will help you understand how this button works. And I want you to do the same thing for the fix button because I do know that people, once they figure out, and it took me a while too, when to push this, because if I have it on, it locks and then keeps sewing. And people are like, well, but it didn't stop. Well, there are multiple ways that this button works. But that's why these videos are here, so you can go back and be reminded. You can also take the time to kind of work with them, incorporate these 2 functions into your next couple days of sewing, and then before you know it, you know exactly when to push which button to get which function that you're desiring for locking. So I hope you have fun with those. Check out all of our video tutorials. There's a link in the description that you can start from the beginning and kind of take your time mastering each of the parts of this beautiful Husqvarna Viking Brilliance 75Q.